Right, so thank you for joining us for the afternoon session. We're starting with a bit of a talk by me on our consumer-focused research, and then we're going to dive into a panel looking at CX in 2030. So let's just dive straight in. So we did a survey this year. Last year, a lot of you will remember we did a generational research survey. We're very much trying a thing where we try and do an interesting survey a year, where we have some talking points without repeating ourselves too much. So this year we decided, let's do a survey on consumers and how they interact with customer service platforms. So this year we surveyed 1,000 people who'd interacted with the customer service platform in the last month. A lot of that was via online shopping, for utilities, for healthcare and those kind of things. 53% of them, 2 to 5 customer service interactions in the last 6 months, which is not high, not small, kind of depends on what they think is a detailed customer service interaction. About half the respondents were under 35, but we did have a good amount of respondents from higher age brackets as well. So a good, I would say, snapshot of the UK consumer market, for example. What did they say? The big question is, how well is CX serving consumers according to this research? 45% have avoided trying to solve an issue they have with a product or service because they would have had to interact with customer service. So the idea of interacting with customer service put them off actually dealing with the problem they had. Only 2% have no issues with customer service. So 98% of the people surveyed had some problem with customer service. And you can see some of the things that they said, wait times, poor quality agents, bad automation, ruining their interactions. A shocking figure is that we asked sort of, on average, how many of your interactions are you satisfied with? And the average respondent was only satisfied with 2/3 of their customer service interactions. So that means 1 in 3 interactions that these people were having was just going in a negative way. And that doesn't mean that they didn't get a resolution they wanted. It means they were unsatisfied with the service, regardless of whether it got them what they wanted or not. So that's kind of a bit of a challenge for the industry, I guess, to make that number lower. But it kind of puts the milestone of where we are currently with customer service, which is it's helping most people, 60% of people, but it's not helping everyone all the time. Then we asked, how are you actually preferring to communicate? So we've divided this up into inbound and outbound. So when I go to contact a company, so inbound versus when a company tries to contact me, so outbound. And then we divided things up into routine and urgent communication. So routine is updating an account or changing the name on something, or just contacting someone to book an appointment, that kind of thing. Versus urgent, I'm out of power, I'm out of electricity, I've fallen over, I've had an accident, that kind of thing. Overwhelmingly, when I'm reaching out to contact a company as a consumer, email, and then slightly behind that, phone. 2 main things. We did also see, 8% of people saying I like to text, 5% saying I like to WhatsApp, but a lot less sort of drastic and divided up once you get past that email and then phone. When it came to urgent, unsurprisingly, I think 55% of people said if I've got an urgent issue, I want to pick up the phone and speak to someone. I think we all know that across the industry, but it's good to sort of reinforce that ideal. Email, still popular there. Other systems, slightly popular as well. For the outbound, so when a company is contacting me to update me about something, for the routine, email, very, very much preferred. Phone calls, not really liked, and the rest were actually much, much behind that. So email is kind of the overall winner if you're trying to update people about a routine update to their service. When we got into outbound, things got a lot more interesting. So if the company has something urgent to tell you, a lot of people like to select more than one option, which is why you see this spread. So obviously people like being phone called, but they like emails as well, because maybe they check their emails and they're not on their phone all the time. A lot of people said, actually, I like SMS, and that's been growing from the research that we've seen. Getting an urgent text telling you of something you need to know about seems to be becoming more and more popular. So there's a pretty good spread there, and I mean, obviously we can't capture all of the data on there. All the other things like OTT and WhatsApp and those kind of things are in there as well, but they're definitely still behind the email and the phone as the preferred mediums. What do consumers dislike then? And you'll see there's kind of a broad spread of answers across all the different options. There's a small percentage who really, really dislike hold music, I think like 17%. And at the bottom, I think a solid like 7% really hate being told that their call is important to the company. So I'm sure that doesn't apply to everyone, but there's a group of people who really like this because they could only choose one option. So some people really, really dislike that. But above all, we see wait times, 28%. The largest number of people just hate having to wait too long to interact with customers. Rude or poor quality agent interactions, obviously a bit of a challenge, and automated systems not understanding the issue, which has become more of a challenge in recent years as more automated systems grow. There's also some other interesting things on there, just like being repeatedly transferred, lack of inter-team knowledge, all these other kind of things, which are things that I think a lot of solutions are trying to solve, where we're trying to share more information in the industry. So we could smooth out a lot of that, and obviously automation and AI coming in, reducing wait times, triaging things better can help solve a lot of these issues as well. How do consumers feel about automation? Now, I presented some of this earlier, but I've added a little bit more in there. So 12% of people, when we ask them, here's a list of issues, so you've got something wrong on online shopping, someone's died, you've got a healthcare problem, which of these issues would you like to speak to a human, and which of these issues are you happy dealing with an automated system? And 12% said, regardless of what's happening to me, I would like to interact with a human agent. 8% said, I don't care as long as it works. It's good. 80% of people said they have at least one issue they'd like to speak to a human agent about. And that means, they all have one problem. A lot of it was healthcare or, bereavement, those kind of things, where they just need a human to talk to them. And I think we kind of understand that, but it's important to understand that automation can't ever go to a certain point. 23% said they think chatbots are good at customer service. 35% said chatbots are bad at customer service. I think that kind of really just responded to the trend of the types of chatbots that have been deployed so far into the industry. I myself know from my experience of, I know I need to speak to a human. The chatbot is shooting FAQ answers at me. And how do I actually get to a human at the other end of that? And it's a very frustrating experience. So I think, that's just a response to where we are now with chatbots. And also, I think it's important, and I presented this earlier, but just to reinforce that the medium and the perception of consumers is still that human interaction is the way to get what they want and to get the best service. 50% of people said the fastest way for me to solve my problem is if someone would just pick up the phone. And 50% of people said the best way to get a solution is if people would just pick up the phone and I could just speak to someone. So the human element is still very much coming through in all of our research in terms of what people prefer. And as I kind of said earlier in the AI part, is that if we want that to shift to automation, there is an uphill struggle. There is a work to do to earn the consumer's trust that those automated systems are going to deliver what they want. Because it's not there, and I don't think it can be taken for granted. I think that's what our research is saying. So then looking to the future, unfortunately, 44% of the people we surveyed said they think customer service has gotten worse in the last 3 years, sorry. Now, that could be a mishmash of trends. Maybe people are doing more shopping online, customer service platforms are more strained. But the fact is that the perception of the respondents is that actually this is becoming more of a problem rather than less of a problem, which means that obviously the industry needs to step in and start tackling that. 35% say the main thing they want AI to do is reduce wait times, and obviously wait times was their biggest problem, so that kind of lines up. And then interestingly, we asked them if you had a service that you used quite regularly, and we didn't really give any examples, but we let them kind of imagine what that would be. And it started offering a premium customer service add-on option. We didn't say how much it would cost, we just wanted to kind of get their impressions on it. Would you pay for that option? And 34% said, actually, yes, I would. So if there's a service they're using regularly and you earmark an add-on specifically for high-quality customer service, that is actually something that a lot of consumers might be more receptive to. The good news, I guess, for most companies is that you're making something, and if the thing is good, the consumers like it. So we asked people what the most important thing to them was. Was it customer service reviews? Was it their interactions with the company? Was it the company's reputation on Trustpilot and those kind of things? And 40% of people, so the overwhelming answer by I think about 20% to the next answer was product quality is all that matters, and everything else comes in under that. So, I mean, the good news is if you make a good product, you get it into people's hands. It probably doesn't break that often. They probably don't have to deal with customer service, but that's the main thing that's driving their interests. And that's it, really. So that's just a snapshot of what consumers are saying about customer service and the main trends that are driving that. Obviously, it presents a lot of challenges to our industry to change things and sort of bring these numbers to places where we'll be happy with. And the biggest challenge, I think, that comes out of the research is that automation can't be taken for granted, and a lot of people still aren't going to be comfortable with automation to that level. Moving on then, it's still me, unfortunately, or fortunately maybe, and I'm hosting a panel on CX in 2030. So if the panelists will hop up on the stage, and let's sit down and have a chat. Yeah? Yeah, I like it. All right, joined by Chris Angus from 8x8, Ben Nero from Zoom, Sunil Diaz from Aleppo, and Jonathan Quayle from Anywhere 365. How are we all doing? Let's just go down, introduce yourself and your company, and just give us a bit of a heads up on what you're doing in the space.
Yes, Sunil Diaz from the CEO of Aleppo Technologies, a US company. We develop and market telecommunications monetization solutions as well as network core applications. And one of our latest forays is into generative AI, where I think it's still early to market. It's early days, but we're beginning to see some green shoots.
Hi, I'm John Quayle, pre-sales practice lead at Anywhere 365, and we're a contact center vendor, and we build an application that allows Microsoft Teams users to be contact center agents, as well as everything else they can do.
Good afternoon. My name's Ben Neo. I head up our contact center sales practice in EMEA. I guess my job is to help vocalize what Zoom's doing. So most people know Zoom for what they think Zoom is, and obviously we've been very successful during the pandemic and been very blessed with the amount of customers there. But now actually we're moving in terms of opening up and transitioning our platform into being a CX platform first. So my job is to help enable that through EMEA.
Hi, I'm Chris. I look after our contact center go-to-market at 8x8. Been in the business for about a million years, maybe 10 or 12 maybe. So part of my responsibilities are to work with our product team, our sales teams, to ensure that we're positioning our call center applications in the right place and ensuring that we are helping our customers get the most out of the services that we can offer them.
Brilliant. And I know that in the research I just presented, phones still came up very, very highly. But we are, that number is changing, and maybe 3 or 4 years ago it would have been much, much higher. So I guess the question to the panelists then is, how do we see that shift between voice and other channels changing? What does it look like now? Where's it going?
I mean, for us, I still see that voice is key, and I think also it's a regional, also an age demographic thing. I think there'll be parts of our customers who will always prefer voice, and we still see that today, and I think the research will show you that. But equally, I think what we have to do is make sure that our customers have the ability to service all of their demographic in the way they choose to be serviced. So they have to be able to access WhatsApp, SMS, email, chat, bots, and calls to ensure that they don't miss a trick.
Yeah, I mean, as Chris said there, I mean, still, I think sort of something 64%, I mean, yours said 55, I think, but 64%, some of the reports that we've seen in terms of, voice preferred interactions. And I think voice is always going to be a key area because of the trust factor. I'm speaking with somebody, it's immediate, I can get some, known that I'm going to be helped. The issue that they've got is, with the industry at the moment, in the last 3 or 4 years, wait times have tripled on average from 40 seconds to about 120 seconds. And also abandon rates have almost doubled from 5.2 to 8.4, right? So that's what it's telling us in the research that we're seeing. So there's clearly challenges with delivering a voice service. And not only that, it's very expensive. It's £5.50 for a voice channel versus probably half or even less than that for other channels. So voice is still very dominant because we trust it around there, but it's the most expensive one to serve. So I think companies are still looking to transition you onto other channels. And for those of you who've got kids, they don't phone anything now. I've got to text my son as to when to come to dinner and things like that. If I phone him, he will ignore it, and then he'll text me back. I think that's obviously a sign as to where things are going around there. So voice when you absolutely need it, but there's just other ways we've got to transition people onto with trust.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to choice as well. If the only channel you have is voice, all of your calls will come in as voice, right? But really, we look at the type of call. We've already covered that. If it's urgent, people tend to phone. But there's self-service that can give you stuff even quicker now, and that doesn't necessarily have to be conversational. I lost a debit card, as I do every week, and I renewed that on my app, on my phone. But we look at demographics and we look at young people, and as someone in their sort of late mid-30s, I remember being young and wanting to communicate with everyone via text. And as I get older and my sort of lifestyle changes a bit, I have less time and want to bring stuff in. And it's probably fair to say everyone in this room, we probably have fairly cushy homeworking environments where we can phone someone up. If you're looking at someone who maybe works as a teacher and is in front of people 24/7, if they need a matter resolved, they probably want to communicate in a way that's asynchronous and drop in a WhatsApp. And then you also look at where you are geographically. So we do some work in some emerging markets, and they simply just don't necessarily have the telephony infrastructure to get a reliable call through. And stuff like WhatsApp is key for them because someone might have a little bit of data they can use, they can get a message out, but they probably can't have the bandwidth to use a call. So there's loads of stuff. It's demographic, it's technical, and it's also cultural.
Yeah, so I think voice is still important, but what we are seeing in our work with some of our customers is even though they target a certain type of demographic, which are the digital natives, interestingly, they're seeing the shift from voice to digital channels in the baby boomer generation that is slowly transitioning away from voice. That being said, I think the challenge and my market's mainly service providers, I think the challenge still remains in terms of the integration between voice and other systems in the enterprise to be able to complete transactions and offer automation and seamless flow through types of transactions.
It's interesting you say that voice is dropping in the baby boomer generation, because I remember last year's generational research, we saw one of the things that was happening was that as people got older and their hearing became worse, suddenly their interest in learning how SMS, WhatsApp, those kind of ways of interacting non-verbally drastically increased. So it's kind of the message I'm getting from everyone is that omnichannel is probably the way things will end up by the time we hit 2030. And partly that is preference, I want to speak on voice, and partly it is just changing circumstances of the person you're interacting with.
Yeah, I think also, when you talk about the older generation, I mean, they're communicating with the younger generation as well, who want to do things more on an omni-channel perspective. So therefore, they're being exposed to that kind of technology because that's how they're communicating in their daily lives with other members of their family and other parts of their community. And so that will naturally have a knock-on effect to their preferences and sort of willingness to want to try new channels as well.
So continuing to look ahead then, we think about omnichannel. And thinking instead then about the human versus virtual agent question. So in 6 years' time, we'll say 2030, or maybe even beyond that, and I've seen statistics, I think, from our own research that suggests that 80% of customer interactions might be automated by that point. I mean, do you agree with that? And also, do you feel like there's always going to be humans in the contact center? How many of them do we think we need, right? That's the question.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, really. I think if you start to automate a human interaction, I think bots are great, but they suck at pretending to be people. And really, it's what will those interactions be like? And I think it's probably fair to say 80% of interactions will involve AI and automation, but not necessarily at the expense of replacing people in a contact center. And you look at kind of the large bank of call centers we always think about 20 years ago, those initial parts of the call can be automated, and you can allow those people to be more specialized, and that's something AI is going to help us with.
Yeah, I mean, what we're seeing right now, I was in Dusseldorf a few weeks ago at a conference that specializes in AI and chatbots, and the key speakers, Lufthansa, Adidas, not any of those spoke about the reduction of workforce. In fact, they increased their workforce. They're just servicing more people faster by introducing bots. So I don't think that we're going to see a huge downturn in human workforce in order to support the bot drive. I think actually the opposite. I think you're going to actually find ourselves hiring more people to do more exciting, complex things and having the bots take over the mundane, run-of-the-mill things.
Yeah, I think it's about augmenting what you do. So both of you saying it's not about replacing, it's about enhancing. Can you be more accurate? Can you be quicker? Your study there talked about the fact that people were, 2/3 of people were less impressed with customer service or whatever, that kind of stuff. So there's clearly an expectation level that is really, really high, that continues to get higher and higher. And having an automated system that can retrieve information quicker, so those times when you are engaging with an individual, the information is quick, it's accurate, it's up to date, right? A bot can help that with. But actually, what about the bit before? Maybe the bot can do some information before while somebody is in one of those horrible queues or whatever. Maybe it's different ways of use of AI and use of technology, even before it gets to a human, so it makes that human agent's experience a lot more pleasurable and ultimately resolves the situation that the customer is asking for.
And I think the challenge really is in the human agents are expensive to train and expensive to hire, and I think technology can certainly help in terms of the churn is pretty high in the industry, so to bring people in and have to train them and people churn out, that ultimately results in lower customer satisfaction. So I think technology such as AI can help in terms of that training, faster, making the human agent more productive, which hopefully will improve customer experience.
We saw, just as an example of that, we saw a BPO over in South Africa that's doing lots of contract work for lots of different organisations. Their first stance was no chance, no AI. That's gonna. Their thought process was around chatbots taking over resources that they could then onward sell. Actually, when they looked into it, the speed to competence in order to understand what that person had to deliver, the amount of contracts they had, that kind of stuff, it pretty much halved the time. So they're going from 6 months down to 3 months for somebody to be able to get, efficient at handling lots of these relatively complex inquiries that were coming through. And they, so from being a bit that they feared, it's now something that actively is supporting that business, and that use case was really, really powerful for them.
I think that's very interesting. So we're actually also upskilling agents faster to deliver on the needs of the industry as well. Moving on then, I guess, still staying with the agent though, but thinking about pricing. I mean, obviously at the moment we charge cost per seat, cost per agent. If we're bringing in this big bank of AI tools that can train agents faster, if we're automating a lot more of the caseload, do we think the pricing model is going to change in the next 5 years or so?
I do. I think we've already started to experiment with consumption-based and usage-based requirements for our customers. I think it's the way forward. I think there's always going to be a fixed cost element because most of us are public. We have to charge a fixed cost to appease the guys on the street. But I think you're gonna start to see a more flexible usage-based model. I think it's clear to see that, and I think our customers are already asking to. They don't want to be locked into what happens if I don't use that. They want to know that they are paying only for what they use. So we're already experimenting with those sorts of ideals, and I think that you're going to see more and more of that over the next 5 years.
Now here's just an interesting follow-up on that, is that, we've seen research that says that the average query that an agent takes is probably going to take longer because it'll be more complex, right? Because the automation will deal with more things. But if we're charging based on consumption, does that then mean that there's going to be more pressure on agents to finish calls quickly?
I don't think so, because I think the number of inquiries will be reduced. If you introduce a bot scenario first that can hedge off a lot of the other stuff, it allows them that time to be more robust and more purposeful. So actually, I think it will balance itself out, actually be more cost benefit to our customers than the other way around.
Okay, right. Other thoughts on pricing?
I think flexibility is the key around this. So horses for courses, there's going to be various different people that want, a consumption model. There's going to be others where a predictive per agent cost is the right way to go. So I think us vendors, we have to be open to those different ones. Often a lot of the elements that restrict us are maybe the billing systems that we use and things like that. So there's a technology element that needs to be thought through around this. But I think some of us are making some creative ways of getting around that. But yeah, I think there's going to be numerous different types that are going to be applicable to large, medium, and small, and carriers and resellers and all sorts of stuff. I think that's just the ever-evolving nature of the way in which we're pricing.
Yeah, I think we can actually speak from both because we have both pricing options available, which is quite handy. So, you can purchase our product as per user per month, or you can just buy a certain amount of capacity, and that gives you unlimited agents. And the reason we do that is the kind of persona of the agent is becoming more blurred, and there might be people in the organization that could benefit from some tools that you want to stand up quickly. You don't want to go and license extra people. And it's quite interesting seeing people do prefer that capacity-based model. And as we start to look at things like AI that can onboard an agent really quickly and handle stuff, we have to find a way to make sure that our end customers are sort of paying for the value they get back. And one way to do that is by capacity, because there might not be quite as many people using it.
So I think, yeah, the pricing model is going to have to change because there's an opportunity for the enterprise or the service provider in our case where you potentially don't need as many human agents as you would have in the past, and there's with improvement in productivity with automation, the number of agents might come down, good for the enterprise, good for the service provider. I think it's going to be a challenge on the technology players to maintain the cost on a per agent basis that is probably going to have to go up significantly, or come up with some sort of a different model that can deliver value to the end customers.
Okay, brilliant. So you all kind of agree that we're moving into an area where there's more flexibility inherent in the pricing model to give customers the ability to pick and choose what they need for their agents. I think another area that's quite interesting is this whole area of agent experience, because obviously we focus a lot on CX and the customer experience, but tied to that inherently is how the agent thinks, feels, is treated on a day-to-day basis. So how do you think the realms of agent experience are going to change in the next 3 to 5 years?
Well, I think from an agent perspective, again, the ability to train quicker, the ability to help the agent be more productive, to be able to respond faster to the end customers, I think that's going to help both from a morale perspective as well as from a skilling perspective. So I think it's I see it as a positive outcome, if anything.
Yeah, I think anything we can do to save agents time helps. I saw a customer recently, and I just went and sat with some of their contact center agents, and this was a local county council. And really, what those agents were doing were receiving a call, going onto the public-facing portal, and doing things on behalf of people that had called in and didn't realise they could do this. And if we can offload some of that, that helps. And one of the key things they were all saying is just finding information is hard. You have someone on the phone, you have to switch interface, go somewhere else. And one thing we try and do is make as much available to the agent in a single interface, and also using a familiar tool. So if we're using Teams as your contact center endpoint, most people know how to use that. Anyone who's come from any other organization probably already knows how to use Teams or another UC tool. And if we use those familiar tools, it means the agent is using something familiar, and they only have to learn a small part of how to be an agent, not learn a whole new call handling platform.
Yeah, as someone said earlier, the agent churn rate's never been higher, right? So, we really do have to look after the agents. There's an element for us as vendors in terms of producing, solutions which are quick and easy to use, and they can get all the information in one place. There's obviously a big element around the organization understanding that role as well. So, we talk about AI. So we had an experience the other day where AI was doing all the transcription afterwards, and basically it cut down wrap-up by about 80%. That was a negative thing for the agents because they felt they were just straight onto something else and there was no time to breathe. So I think from an agent experience, you need to look at it from a number of different lenses. There's a technology lens. There's a workplace lens as well. So what kind of culture are you doing? And there's a well-being lens as well, right? So you have to look at all of those in that sense. So an agent experience isn't just something that's down to a vendor or organization. It's a mixture of lots of elements. And technology can solve some stuff, but again, it's being deployed into a culture, into individuals who are all got their own personal preferences as to how they want to be treated.
I mean, for us, we've already been invested in this hypothesis that we need to treat employee experience and customer experience in like equal measures. So we've already been building persona-based workspaces, supervisors, sales space, agent space, so that they can be built and tailored towards their own personal preferences. So it means that their own day-to-day experience is how they want it to be within the confines of what the business allows them to do that. But then joining your call center platform to your back office teams also then gives your front of house guys who are handling dozens and dozens of calls at any one time the ability to access the knowledge workers who aren't on the call center but are on the system. So if you can have that composable workspace where they can experience a day-to-day which they are in charge of, but also access to the people who can answer their questions to make their job easier, that then ultimately will build employee experience which is good, which helps them retain staff, which makes them more pleasant to be around, and then that then leads into better customer experience because their day-to-day isn't stressful by hampering around poor technologies. And we've been doing that for some time now, and that's one of our key directives now, is to keep building out these persona-based workspaces for the employee.
I think it's a pretty nice image. So we can kind of think about agent experience in 5 years' time. You join a company, you learn what you need to do using systems you're already familiar with within the space of 2 months. You know, you're working on more complex cases, but you have direct access to the data team that helps you, and you probably get, you know, a lot of your admin after the call finished, but you're not immediately pushed into the next call because they appreciate you need a break. I mean, that sounds like a much sort of more robust and friendly place to work, I guess. So I think a lot of the people on the panel are vendors, but here's a big question. So obviously you have the tools to provision via the cloud to sell it yourself. But what role will the channel play, do you think, in the future?
The channel is critical. The channel makes things work. That's what my suggestion is vendors create technology that's supposed to be easy to use and will fit lots of technical use cases. But the practical use case and the knowledge that channels have, because they've been, number one, probably dealing with numerous customers for a longer period of time, so they've seen the sort of the ebbs and flows of technology, but again, they're in there with the customers themselves, and they're also bringing together probably multiple different, whilst everyone would like to standardize on single platforms, you know, it is about being as open, as conducive as possible to working with what the customer already has or some other strategic elements that they're bringing in, and the channel knits that all together, you know, with a managed service and all those things. So for us, look, you know, we are trying to move very, very quickly over to be a channel-first business around there, because people came and bought Zoom from us without, directly. Now, you know, now people have got a choice. We're seeing that the channel is the differentiator around that. So technology can do whatever they want, but the channel makes it very specific, very contextual, and they're really, really important moving forward.
We are channel first, 8x8, and we have been for some time. And I think the key thing is that we are a global organization, but as a channel partner, you will have a local touch point and a local feel, and you can give much more hands-on white glove experiences to your customers that we can't provide, because that just doesn't scale for a provider and a vendor. So it's the way forward. If we have 10 partners with 10 sales guys, that's 100 salespeople selling our services. That's much better for us than us employing 100 sales guys directly. So it's super important for us as our go-to-market strategy to enable the channel to be self-sufficient, but also from the customers. They get a far better hands-on experience and are looked after in a way which simply a global organization can't provide that white glove to users in that kind of SMB bracket. It just doesn't scale for a vendor. So the channel is the future for all of us here. And yeah, to your point, being channel first is super critical, I think, and that's the only way people like us are going to continue to press our solutions out there, is if we fully enable the channel and the wholesalers especially to be self-sufficient.
Yeah, I think it's something that's really important for us, mainly because we only sell through the channel, so we need our channel partners. And it's been an interesting 5 or so years, really. We've looked at a lot of these partners that previously used to focus on the technical complexity of putting a UC solution in on-prem for a customer and seeing that all go into the cloud, and the focus shifting towards user adoption, the consultative effort of really doing this properly. And for us, we can make the technology, but we can't sit there with an end customer, and spend the time learning about their business and exactly what they do. And that's where our partners really add value for us, is being that advocate for the customer to us and also helping the customer to maximize what they have. So yeah, channel's critical, really.
You know, we think of this slightly differently in the sense the others here think of channels. I really think of it as a partner ecosystem, especially in, you know, when we look at 5G and mobile private networks and so on, which is made up of many microservices that you kind of bring together. You've got to orchestrate, and not one vendor or one partner can bring it all. So I really do it all together. So you've got sort of these being deployed in the cloud, someone doing the orchestration, someone providing the microservices, someone providing subscriber data management. So I really look at it as an ecosystem of partners. That's the way that I think about it from in terms of the channel.
That's good. So the channel very much staying strong within the contact center space. I think everyone kind of agrees on that. Moving on then, just with some specific questions. So, I mean, Chris, obviously 8x8, your contact center solution certified for Microsoft Teams. Do you want to talk about why you've done that a bit, and how do you feel about sort of these open solutions in the future?
I mean, you don't try and fight the bigger bear, do you? I mean, at last count, Teams have got about 1.4 billion global monthly active users. So we are all about giving our customers a freedom of choice. There are limitations if you are a Teams-only provider. So we want to allow our customers to have access to our global enterprise-grade contact center with inbuilt CPaaS, UCaaS, all the bits in one roof. The only provider can offer all of that in one place, but equally make it easy for their users to move to us, which means if you are a Teams user and it's easier for you to use Teams, great. You could have 8x8 sat behind you. If you are someone who's non-fussed, also great. You can move to 8x8 natively. The idea for us is to ensure that we see them as a partner rather than as a threat. And luckily for us, they also agree. They see us as a partner and rather than competition. So we work really, really closely to ensure that our experience between 8x8 Contact Center and Microsoft Teams is seamless and effortless. And so far, fingers crossed, everything's working quite nicely and moving in the right direction.
Mm. And I guess moving then on to Jonathan as well, because you exclusively work through Teams, is that for similar reasons? Because you can't work without those integrations. So what was the reason behind that approach?
Yeah, so we integrate with Teams, but there's also loads of prerequisites we have in Microsoft 365 as well. And the main reason for that is we don't want customers to have to pay twice for something that they're already paying for. So if you've got a Microsoft 365 subscription, you have a telephony tool already. You have most of your agent tool there. You have your workspace to do all the administration. You have data storage. So we like to leverage those things that customers are already using as much as possible. And that means we don't have to recharge for it. It means we can focus our efforts on developing what really adds the value rather than just duplicating things that customers have.
Very interesting. Sunil, just to turn to you then. So obviously earlier the Aleppo keynote talked about work with Lum Mobile. We talked about omnichannel at the start of the panel. So I guess what are the main benefits that are being seen through self-care omnichannel for end users?
So from an end user perspective, it's the always on 24/7 type of customer interaction, the ability to support your customers, faster call resolution, automated transactions as part of the faster call resolution, and really the seamless omni-channel ability to communicate through multiple channels rather. So there's nothing more frustrating than you having to call up into a human agent, be put on hold, reach a human agent, describe your problem, the call disconnects, you've got to go back on and you've got to you're again put on hold and you try your app, you try maybe WhatsApp or Facebook to communicate with the enterprise. So it's really providing that seamless omni-channel experience, providing maybe detecting presence so that you're not losing context. So these are some of the challenges that we're working on in terms of improving customer experience. Obviously from the service provider side, it's the ability to manage costs, to reduce costs, improve productivity, and offer a better seamless omni-channel customer experience.
Very, very interesting. And then just turning to Ben, so obviously Zoom comes from the collaboration standpoint. I'm sure everyone in the room knows that. Do you find the majority of your customers coming to the contact center are new customers, or are they existing collaboration customers?
As Zoom's transformed itself from the sort of pandemic darling, and then sort of bringing in more services onto the platform itself, we're very, very lucky to have a very strong affection from customers who like using Zoom, whether it's because it's simple, easy to use, whether it's because they like the innovation that we just keep adding into the platform as well, but they trust it. So as we saw when we brought out Zoom Phone, which is now about 7 million plus seats, the quick growth of that and the fact that it worked as well. So Zoom's known for bringing out things that are easy to use and they always work. So that's the first thing. And similarly, when we see Contact Center, naturally, those people who had Phone have then expanded that into contact center. So we've had a significant proportion of people that use contact center have been already existing Zoom customers because it's easy to deploy around there. But interestingly, we have a very large proportion of people that are brand new, didn't even have any Zoom at all. They've invested in the contact center itself, and then that's pulled through the other Zoom services. So one's larger than the other, clearly, because there's an ease of doing something when you're already using the platform. But we're seeing both, and we continue to see both of those elements rise.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So just to wrap up the panel, because we are running up on time, and this is future looking. I guess just to hear from all of you, what the one most significant change you think people again in this room should hear about that's going to happen in the next sort of 5 years? It's the hard question, but it's fun.
It's a great question because no one knows the future, so I can say what I like here, right? But I think one of the things we're going to see is just more convergence of applications. We already touched on it earlier about you have your data in one place, your communications channel in one place. And I think we're going to see a lot of that working together. And I should probably talk about AI because everyone will, but we're going to see a lot more decision-making, I think, made by AI tools. So we can ramp up contact centers, change routing based on some external factors, and use those tools to make those decisions.
So I think we're going to see the need or the emergence of personalization, right? Very contextual. Tell me what's relevant to me and speak in my language, whether it's languages in being multilingual, or it's the tone of voice, or the holy grail being probably from an AI perspective, it's these AI engines being able to analyze and detect emotion and respond, based on emotion. So it's going to be a very hyper-personalized type of environment. Although that comes with its own challenges, because in order to be able to do that, you're relying on massive amounts of data and analytics, which the AI, all the AIs love, right, and ingest and can provide you results. But there are, as you know, ethical issues. There are data security issues. There are all kinds of issues, ESG types of issues behind that you'd have to resolve before we get there.
I think you're going to see the tools and solutions which were traditionally held in the upper echelons for large enterprises. You're going to see them come down to the mid-market and the SMB space. I think what you're going to find is the stuff that we all know about today, what you can't afford if you're a small business, that you're going to see the price points drop. You're going to see demand increase from the guys that are 20 users, 30 users, 50 users. Those guys want to be able to fight with the big guys. So I think what we're going to see is the vendors like us building solutions which really blur the lines between enterprise and small business. I think that's where we're going to see the biggest challenges, to make it affordable and scalable for the small guys to access the same technologies that the enterprise guys would traditionally only have access to.
I'm going to talk about a little bit at a sort of broader level. I think you're going to see that not everybody who is doing CX today is going to be in the same shape or form. They're going to see moving forward. There's consolidation is going to happen in the marketplace. So my advice is choose your bets carefully. There's lots of people that are massively over leveraged at the moment, and they're all publicly talking about raising debt and things like that. It's an expensive place to be because the expectations are unbounded, really, around customer experience. The investment in AI, all these things that people are having to do to deliver the enterprise features down at all these different levels, because customer expectations are rising at all those different levels. It's an expensive place to be. So I think what you will see is it's going to consolidate over the next 3 to 4 years, and they're going to be, it will still be a very, innovative sector, but there are going to be some big players, I think, at the end of this. I don't think everybody is going to make it to the end.
There you go. Well, we'll end on that.
Oh, sorry. So that's a negative end, isn't it?
No, maybe. But I think I think you've both given us kind of like this start takeaway, which is one of the promises of cloud is the scalability of platforms. And I know Ring has definitely presented today on a small business platform. I know that Zoom is happy to play smaller businesses as well. So the big companies are using the scalability of cloud to bring their solutions down to the SMB market, and there are a lot of SMBs out there. So it definitely makes sense. So I guess that's the question we can leave is in the future you might see more homogenization of brands across the CX space into smaller companies. And that's a challenge then for the industry to specialize, do things better, and leave it on that way. I'd like to thank all the panelists for joining us today and just give them a bit of a round of applause.